So now that we have the dimension and the width of the eye form that we want to have in cats, we're going to find a sphere. These are my eye forms that I usually use. Any sphere works. I mean, it could be, you know, this is a wood ball that I got at the hobby store. You can use, this is a ping pong ball. These are some clear acrylic spheres that I had lying around. You know, nice expensive acrylic balls. Eye form can really be whatever, but once you find the right sphere you need to mold it and make a nice epoxy resin one. This I found for the width of cat's eye, 3 inches is what I wanted. So for $10 on Amazon, I found this crystal ball. So we're gonna mold this ball and cast a couple nice white epoxy resin eyeballs out of it. When I moved, I had this crappy IKEA shelf, right? Just board, but it's laminated board. And I just saved all these shelves. I mean, you could probably find this thing on the side of the road. But this is a good surface to just hot glue our stuff down and build a wall to make it nice. We're just gonna do a silicone block mold for this. So I got a piece of this PVC pipe, just thin, you know, what is that, 1/2 inch PVC pipe. Cut it, beveled it a little bit with a Dremel. So we're gonna glue this down on the board, and we're gonna take our sphere and glue that down just like that. I got my foam core board. We're gonna score this just the width of a ruler like this, like all the way down. Just score it all the way down so that we can bend it and make a nice circle wall on this. Mix up our silicone, pour that in, let that set overnight, then open it up, cast a couple resin ones. So now that a hot glue is dry, and that ain't going anywhere, it's pretty sturdy enough. We're going to, there's just a little, like, seam under here. I want to make sure silicone isn't going to there, so we're getting our clean clay, and we're just going to smear a little tube, like that, all the way around it. Now, let's start hot gluing, figuring out how much we want of this around there. I'm gonna use canned air for this one, just so it speeds up the process a little bit. So, I'm gonna start just on one side, and kind of tack the corners around. So that's pretty much how I want it, how close I want it there. That's our end line right there. So we're going to cut that on that fold. So here's how full I am with silicone. This is after 2 cups. 1.5 more full cups and we'll be set. So that'll hold. This is nice and strong. That's strong enough. You know, if this was bigger, I would say plaster bandage this just so we know for sure nothing will blow out, but this is perfectly fine. This will hold. This will hold fine. I'm not seeing any leaking so far. So that's good. Nothing's coming out here. So I think we're set. So let's mix a few more batches and then we'll top this off. So you can see here how full it is. A little bit above the line that I wanted to go at, but that's all right. So now we just let this sit for overnight and then we can cut it open, get the ball out of there and start casting a couple eye spheres.
So we've split open our silicone mold and we pulled our acrylic or our glass ball out. This is the mold, and we're going to use Man 200 mold release to spray the mold with. And then I like to sprinkle a little baby powder inside just to make it flow a little smoother, the resin. We're gonna rubber band it and we're ready to pour our resin in.
We have our epoxy resin eye spheres, which is what we're gonna use. So we got a pretty half on each side. So we're gonna cut these lids off, pop those eyes in there, rebuild the lids, and these will be our eye spheres for our final eyeball size when we get custom eyeballs made. And our core balls for when we mold it. So that's why we wanted to make it out of epoxy resin, is we want to drill a hole in here, a threaded hole, put a nice threaded rod in there so it can lock into place in our fiberglass mold, so we get a nice negative sphere socket when we brush in our silicone and cast our head in there. We're just putting in the eyes now. So I have a pretty side. A pretty side of the sphere and I have a bad side. So we're putting the pretty side in. Like that. I kind of want to pop this out so we know it's the same. These are going to be incorporated into the mold so we have perfect sphere sockets. And then when I get custom eyeballs made, they will be spheres this big that'll just pop into place. And then I can arrange and move them so they're looking in whatever direction I decide to do. For the eyes, all right, so we're getting our pretty sides. So now we're gonna start cramming clay around them so they're sitting right where I want them to sit. And then we gotta make sure they're like one's not sticking out further than the other. We're hitting the armature structure so they can't really go back anymore, but we gotta make sure they're like even enough. So I wasn't technically using the calipers, but see, it's not just a nice flat surface. I was seeing how, like, if it's an obvious, you know, one side's too higher than the other, you know what I mean? Like this, I'm seeing it's rubbing right in the center, which is what I want. And then I'm kind of using the line of it to gauge how close these are, the hints of the cheekbones and stuff. And even with the eyes in there, like, it's still not perfect. So I'm kind of like drawing out these lines. So I can kind of like go like, all right, that's the center. How are my temples looking? Right, that's like back of the beak there. Not quite center. I think this eye needs to scoot over that way a little bit. But it's like gushy, and then as it dries out, you can refine shapes, like as it's like it hardens slowly to where it's like sculpting in leather. And when it's in that consistency, you can get like crazy, that's when you can do pores and wrinkles and like crazy details. If it's too mushy, you can't get that stuff in, it's too soft. So you kind of work with it,
drying also. It's part of the detail stuff.
So next video we'll be doing final details on cats, adding the pores and wrinkles. After that we'll be doing the molding process. So thanks for signing up to my Patreon.